This video review was shot, produced, and mastered in cinema-wide, 8K. Make sure to click on the gear icon for the highest resolution at 4320p. You know, at times, I'm dead stuck thinking, what would it look like if a company like Samsung actually tried again? I mean, really tried again. Tried again at the thing that made them great. Try again at the thing that they initiated. Try again at the thing that they created and they pioneered, and then near enough mastered, without actually having to coast and stick to their laurels. It really takes me back to the days when I had the Fold 2, where the excitement of actually unboxing and using that phone religiously, that's a foldable that I had with my own money that I purchased. The excitement, the feel of it, the difference from the first generation that we saw. Yes, I did have access to the Fold 3 and even the Fold 4, which I use religiously. Heck, I've been spoiled enough to have access to the Fold 5 and even the Fold 6. If I'm being honest, did I use them religiously? No, because it just felt like Samsung were comfortable. That Samsung felt they didn't need to try. And it made me think, what would it look like if Samsung went back to their roots and actually tried again? Well, after 2 weeks and more with the Galaxy Z Fold 7, it looks like this is the case where Samsung have tried again. And my goodness, am I glad this is the case. Let's of course start with the design and build quality, and the color I have is the blue shadow, and my goodness, Samsung have knocked it out the park. This is pretty much the definition of really trying again. Look at what they've done to the form factor. It is ridiculously razor thin, to the point where any thinner, you don't have a USB-C port. Heck, you would not even have a SIM card tray. It cannot get any thinner than this. Wide open, 4.1 millimeters thin. It's in the margins, and when closed, it's 8.9 millimeters, and it is super light, 215 grams, lighter than the S25 Ultra and lighter than most flagship slab phones. And it does even feel thinner. Yes, the rating of 8.9 millimeters is there, but actually when I'm holding it next to the likes of things like the Galaxy S25 Ultra, it feels super thin. It feels thinner. It feels much more compact. It just feels like an engineering masterpiece, and Samsung have not held back at all. I'm not going to get into the minutiae and the details of the specific grams, millimeters, as well as the materials used and stuff, but just know this feels premium. And I think this is the part where they're really knocked out the park. And this is Samsung coming back to their roots of genuinely trying again. But it wouldn't be a review without certain caveats of how I feel in terms of the design and what's come with it. Now, this isn't anything against it, but there's less surface area when trying to open the phone. This naturally makes it a bit more difficult. Now, that's not anything wrong in terms of the design and the build of it, but it's just the innate nature of making the phone super thin. Now, mine feels like it doesn't necessarily open straight, that you do have to give it a bit of a tug, but nonetheless, it's built really well on a very strong hinge. So I'm not too worried and too fussed about it. The overall look, the finish, the design, the feel of it. Honestly, this is Samsung in their bag. And it's in their bag because they've actually decided to listen. It's not just the packaging, but also the fact that the form factor has really refined and improved. The outer cover display and the inner display. Everything's come together, and I have to say, this is near enough a 10 out of 10 for the design and the build quality of the Z Fold 7. Let's talk the overall display and experience of it. And again, Samsung, you've knocked it out of the park, not just based on the technicalities of the display when it comes to things like resolution, refresh rate, brightness, etc. but actually the user experience. You've listened, you've changed the thing that we've wanted, which was the outer display form factor. And that is something that now makes it such a usable experience. 6.5 inches, a closer to 20:9 aspect ratio. This definitely makes it much more usable. I know there were fans of the candy bar remote design from the previous, but honestly, we have been begging for this, and Samsung, you have not disappointed. The bezels are thin and even, the viewing experience is clean, the brightness, the resolution, refresh rate, OLED technology. This is all we've wanted, and there is no disappointment when it comes to the overall display experience. And in fact, you get to the inner display, it's now 8 inches. So that even helps when it comes to things like multitasking. The overall viewing experience of a foldable is great, where you can get a full horizontal experience in applications like YouTube while still being able to read the comments. Honestly, it doesn't get better than this. But although it doesn't get better than this, it just makes me think that at this price point, for their flagship foldable device, some things should have been added. What would that be? Gorilla Glass armor. It would have been really nice to have the anti-reflective technology that we see on the S25 Ultra here on the Z Fold 7. It's missing. Don't know the implications of it, the expense of it, as well as the form factor being slimmer. There's no real reason that we've been given, but I would have loved to have seen it at this price point. And then, when it comes to the visibility of the crease, it's been greatly improved, don't get me wrong. It's still something that is there. Not the end of the world. If you're a foldable user, this is something that you're going to be getting used to over the years. But if it's the first time you're taking a plunge to foldable, it might be something that makes you think twice when you're using it, but overall it's something that you get used to. The biggest thing is there is no more S Pen support. And I'm on the fence with this. Was I an S Pen user for the Fold? No, but it's a principle thing. I think things are coming into play where we're seeing this exercise of things being taken away while the price is increasing or staying the same. And it just makes you think that, is this what we want for a device that is meant to be a Swiss Army knife where it can become a tablet? The display's gotten bigger. Wouldn't you want the S Pen to be used? Now, I get it. Maybe they've got the telemetry to see that people weren't really using the S Pen as much. Why? Because you had to buy it as a separate accessory, which was much more expensive, put it in a case. It just wasn't a seamless experience like what you get in the S25 Ultra, but nonetheless, you don't get S Pen display support inside no more. Whether it's because of the extra slim diet that they've put on the Fold 7, it's just unfortunate, and I definitely understand why people are up in arms with it. Is it the end of the world? No, but I think by principle, this is something where Samsung, we do need to hopefully see this back. But yeah, apart from that, the display experience is incredible. Next is performance, and of course Samsung are not pulling any punches here. We've got the best of the best. It's powered by the Snapdragon 8 Elite chipset. Not just any 8 Elite, but the 4 Galaxy chipset, which is finally tuned for the best performance while still having all the efficiency gains that comes with this platform. What I'm really happy to see, there is now a 16 gigabytes of RAM option. This is something that should have been there from before, especially at the higher 1 terabyte. When you are paying this much for a multitasking beast at this price, you definitely want the best in terms of longevity, especially since Samsung are supporting 7 generations of OS updates. That extra RAM is great and needed for the headroom now, but also for better future compatibility and updates. So yeah, performance, it's not skipped a beat, it glides, it's smooth, it's powerful, and there's no issues with it. There were some concerns with thermal management, but in my personal testing, it's held up really well, and this is something that shows that Samsung are again listening and giving the best of the best. So yeah, performance, no issues, absolutely outstanding. The camera experience, and this generationally, has to be the biggest upgrade that we've seen to a Samsung flagship foldable camera system in years. 4 out of the 5 cameras that we've come to know have been upgraded. We now have the same 200 megapixel main wide sensor that we first saw on the S25 Ultra and the S25 Edge here on the Z Fold 7. The ultra wide has been improved. The outer cover display selfie has a new 10 megapixel sensor in there. And of course, the under display camera for the inner display is now gone, replaced with the same new 10 megapixel ultra wide selfie internally. Now, the camera system. I highly recommend you watch my definitive camera comparison between the Z Fold 6, the Z Fold 7, and the S25 Ultra. A lot of work went into it. You can see all the samples tested in there. But I will say this, it's a much needed improvement. The camera capabilities when it comes to 8K, HDR, and log, you even get some advantages over the S25 Ultra. When it comes to the selfie, you can actually shoot that in log and HDR. This is something that you actually don't get when it comes to the S25 Ultra. So something is to be said that potentially this is the benefit of One UI 8.0 with Android 16, or the hardware benefit of the new selfie for the internal camera as well as the outer camera for the selfies. Now, I really love the camera system. Samsung have knocked it out of the park when it comes to usability, being able to switch between all the lenses seamlessly in 4K 60, and also flipping that to the selfie camera for the inner display. And also, the fold experience of using a camera is phenomenal. Being able to use the outer cameras as your selfie, especially when you're on horizontal mode, it lines up perfectly to the viewfinder. The experience is absolutely incredible, and that level of flexibility and image quality is great. I love the camera system, and not to spend too much time, this is something that they've done well and knocked out of the park. But what's they're missing? What's my qualms with using the Fold 7 camera system? It's really the balance. The balance is off. And when I say the balance is off, what I basically mean is the anomaly. What's the anomaly? The 10 megapixel 3x zoom. Like, don't get me wrong, I appreciate the fact that there's a dedicated 3x zoom, and this is one of the reasons why I will always use a fold device over a flip device. Having a dedicated telephoto, it's so clutch and it's just needed for my everyday usage. I cannot move away from it. But my goodness, this 10 megapixel 3x telephoto is outdated and it just needs to go. And in fact, if I had my way, I would have a similar system to what was on the Note 20 Ultra. Get rid of the 3x. If you're gonna give me 3 lenses, give me no less than a 4x. Yeah, give me a 5x and actually balance it. I would have much preferred a much more balanced, cohesive hardware system where the main sensor was a new 50 megapixel sensor, then we had a 50 megapixel 5x or 4x, and then a 50 megapixel ultra wide. The ultra wide being 12 megapixels is actually fine, but not having a 4x or 5x, I can't personally live with that. Honestly, Samsung, we need to be done with the 3x 10 megapixel, and that's also on the S25 Ultra. That's one of my biggest qualms with the camera system when using it. And then another weird one, the under display camera. I kind of miss it. I know. What does that basically say about myself? I'm shallow. I'm just gonna be very honest, I'm shallow. Because technically, in every form of usability and quality, this new 10 megapixel selfie for the inner display is miles better. Great, we needed it. But man, when I look at the visual niceness of the UDC and the uniqueness of it, that was just so nice and clean in the Fold 6 and the previous, especially on the Fold 6, and I do miss it. Generally, I was hoping that we were going to get an 8 megapixel or 10 megapixel UDC camera. And I get why they've done it. It's much better. Those that use the big in-display viewfinder for taking pictures and selfies, it's much wider, so great for group selfies and being able to see yourself on a bigger display, but I miss the UDC. Listen, this part, just take it with a grain of salt. Don't listen to me too much. I'm telling you, technically, this new 10 megapixel selfie is much better. It's way more usable. But man, the visual look of the UDC, that's something that's missed. Maybe, I hope they bring it back much better, much more refined. But again, that's the situation. Again, definitely watch my camera comparison. The camera system is great, but the balance is something that I just want Samsung to get right, hardware-wise. But software-wise, the usability, shooting log, HDR, ease of conversion, the pro mode, and everything else that comes with it with the video portrait mode, I could go on for days. This is a great improvement, especially when it comes to the color pipeline as well. Battery and charging. And without bearing the lead, you probably already know this. The battery capacity is still the same, 4,400 milliamps, same 25 watt wire charging, same 15 watt wireless charging. Things do look the same, but does that actually mean things feel the same? Well, that's one thing I love doing on this channel. Battery testing, not just indoors realistically, but also outdoors with our real day in the life series. So definitely go check out the indoor extreme battery drain test on the Fold 7 and our day in the life video. And of course, if you've gotten this far, you see value in this video, the more cinematic feel and style to this review, the depth, the production, then be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss future videos like this on the Lover of Tech channel. We're on the road to 100k subscribers for 2025. Your help and support and engagement, we can definitely make it happen. The battery experience, there I say, is somewhere between decent, manageable to good. And it really depends on who you are. If you are just a normal user, this battery life is going to be more than fine. It will last you the whole day, especially if you're mixing it between Wi-Fi and cellular data with automatic brightness and actually letting it manage it. But dare I say, if you're a power user like me, which in my personal opinion, if you're going to be using a Fold, you're most likely a power user for how big the inner display is and the multitasking capabilities. Man, I think this battery life could be better, but here's the caveat where I want to praise it. In reverse, being able to make it that much slimmer, 26% slimmer and lighter than before, and still keeping the same capacity, making it more efficient, and it actually beating the Fold 6 and the Fold 5 by a large margin, especially when it comes to the Fold 5, this is a great achievement from Samsung. Charging speeds, near enough the same. What we saw from before, it's not much different, close to an hour and a half to full charge. I will say this though, in light of what we're seeing in the tunnel of Samsung, this is a fantastic outing. But we know technology is improved, and I know the buzzword right now is silicon carbon. Why Samsung haven't done it? It could be logistics, it could be capacity, it could be the sheer volume that Samsung units are shifted when it comes to their devices that maybe haven't access to the quantity needed and also the reliability, especially longevity. Maybe that's something that's just not there yet. Whatever the reason is that we're still using the same capacity and the same battery technology, longevity is one of the things. A tried and true tested system is also what Samsung really wants to make sure that they keep in line when it comes to the battery experience. But all I can say is, this has to be something that really needs to be considered next time. An up to 5,000 milliamp hour battery capacity. This is something we're waiting for, whether it's graphene or graphite tech, or silicon carbon when it becomes much more mature in terms of the reliability and the quantity that you can shift. Maybe this is where we'll see it. Regardless, we're at that point where Samsung, when it comes to the battery life experience, we need this to really be flagship level when it comes to your foldables. But for now, I'll say this, it's decent, manageable to good, depending on who you are. Software experience. Now, I won't bore you too much with software because it's not something I cover heavily on my channel. There's other channels that do a much better job and in-depth because I'm just not so interested in investing in it like the other parts. But again, looking at the software, I will say this. One UI 8.0 with Android 16 out of the box. This is something that really surprised me. One of the first set of phones to come with Android 16 out of the box. I was expecting this next year. This is a good look from Samsung. And of course, 7 years of OS generation updates. It helps with the hardware improvements that we have in there with more RAM, obviously the latest chipset. This is such a good look, and of course the foldable experience when it comes to software for multitasking on the inner display is great. I will say this though, when it comes to the software for the camera UI, one of the things that still bugs me is where the selfie button is placed on the top left. Like Samsung, could we not have placed it nearer to the bottom right and made it bigger? That stretch to the far left is still a tedious one. away from that little niggle, the software experience is great. And I know there's a lot of focus on AI and Galaxy AI. Listen, it's getting mature to the point where what they have done with the partnership with Google, Samsung's Galaxy AI and AI interface and usability with Gemini and everything else that comes with it is incredible. Not something I'm touching on too heavy, but I've got to give it to them. One UI 8.0 and One UI as a whole, when it comes to the software and foldable experience, is incredible. And that's even before you add all the extensions from Goodlot. Regardless, you're gonna have a good time when it comes to the software. It's fast, it's fluid, it just works. And Samsung right now, when it comes to software, they really are in their bag. Not much of a visual change, but regardless, the performance, the support, the capabilities, and what it can do, yeah, the software experience is top notch. I'll come back to my original statement where I said, what would it look like if a company like Samsung actually tried again? It would look like the Z Fold 7. Finally, Samsung have really put effort in actually trying again, and it's been a long time coming. This inspires and brings confidence back into what Samsung really represents, especially when it comes to foldables. But then again, it does worry me that with things like no S Pen support, the UDC camera being removed, no Gorilla Glass Armor for the outer display, and the same battery capacity and charging experience, does it justify the slight increase in the base price, especially in regions like the US? Yes, of course, no increase in price here in the UK. But by principle, does that justify? Well, Samsung is playing in a completely different league when it comes to the access that they can give to the global user experience, because people forget that intangible. Samsung dominate in that area. Most shipments, most support when it comes to carriers, and resellers and retailers that can get these devices and experience into more people's hands, especially considering how expensive this is. You want it to be accessible as possible. So yes, we see what the technology is around us when it comes to the development of foldables, from battery tech and everything else that comes with the camera and more, and form factor. But at the end of the day, Samsung really have done more than enough to justify that this is the arena that they dominate. So yeah, there's more to come. There's more to expect. But for now, this is Samsung at their best when it comes to trying again. That's a wrap.